July 26, 2022 meeting of the Cotuit Fire District Prudential Committee to order. I'll start with a roll call. Ray Perrone.
Present.
Charlie.
Present.
Mark Lynch.
Present.
Seth Burdick.
Present.
Fran Parks present. I mean, it covers everybody, right? We stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. Do we have a flag?
Yeah, it's right here.
Okay. I pledge allegiance
Pledge allegiance
to
to
the
the
flag
flag
of the
of
United
the United
States of
States of
America
America
and to the
and to the
republic
republic for which it stands,
one
one
nation,
nation,
under
under
God,
God,
indivisible, with liberty
liberty
and
and
justice
justice for all.
Thank you. Has everyone had an opportunity to review the June minutes?
Yes. Yep.
Yes. Any additions, subtractions, corrections?
Not for me. I move to approve the minutes.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Okay. Ray, you ready for the treasurer's report?
Yes, I am. Hopefully you got that latest update. There was just a minor change in the tax budget for real estate. We had doubled up on the commercial real estate in the budget line. Current tax collections are at 99% of budget, and budget is the tax levy, which is just above the historical average of 98%. Prior year taxes are down, and that's largely due to that $56,000 refund that the town granted early in the second quarter.
Wait, can you explain that, Ray?
No, I never got an explanation from them. I got a file from them that I really couldn't tear apart to find. And if I had found it, it still wouldn't tell me the answer. It would just identify who got the refund.
So one taxpayer got a $56,000
I don't know
refund?
if it's one or a series. They couldn't even tell me that. Now they assure me that their new system will allow them to do that kind of a search that we asked them to do. But this year, all they could do was just give me a printout of all the receipts that we received, or what they received for us in 2022, for like the first quarter.
Hmm.
So I'm sorry, not very satisfactory, but it does remain a mystery which group of people got that refund and for what reason. One of the disadvantages of, one of the few disadvantages, I would say, of having the town act as our collector. There's an awful lot of advantages to it, economically, etc. But sometimes when you try to dig into the what happened when type of questions, you don't get satisfactory answers, at least up to this point.
But we hope to have that resolved by next year.
We're hoping that this year, 23, that their new system will allow them to answer the type of questions that I raised regarding that refund. Who got
Okay.
it and why?
Okay. Thank you.
The water department is overall over budget. Water rates were also 99% of budget, but they are down, those water rates are down 23% from last year. when we look at the water pumped from one fiscal year to the other, it's down 22% in fiscal '22. And more importantly, it's down 28% in the summer months, which means that there weren't as many excess charges this past year. In the other categories, they are largely over budget. That's meter rates, antenna, solar, liens, penalty, and interest. In sum, those are over budget, which contributed to the over budget condition for the whole department.
Ray, can we jump back to the water for a
Yep.
minute? So what they're saying is last year, meaning the fiscal year, the end of the summer through June 30th, it was down 28%.
It was down fiscal year to fiscal year. That is July 2020 to,
21.
no, let me finish. July 2020 to June 2021 is the prior fiscal year. The current fiscal year starts in July of 2021 and goes to June of 2022. It's the same as the financial year.
Okay.
I took their monthly statistics and converted it into fiscal years. And fiscal year to fiscal year, we've pumped 21% less water. But when you look at the summer months, that is July to December in 21 versus 20, which is the first half of the two preceding fiscal years, that volume is down 28%. And it's that period that you generate most of your excess billings. So they had less excess billings, which accounts for the fact that overall revenue is down slightly more than the volume of water pumped year to year. Does that make sense?
It does. It's just surprising to me. I think this year, fiscal year, they will have, that will rebound. Meaning it is very dry. It has not rained forever. But this is an artifact not of primarily this summer, but
The summer's passed.
the summer's past.
May I make a comment?
Right.
They are encouraging people to put in their own wells, heavily encouraging people to put in their own wells. So that may be another reason for what they're pumping being down, is because people are using their own wells.
And this wasn't its punitive structure to the
Yes,
billing. So their stated aim was to make it painful for people to overuse water. And I guess that they got people's attention with the first, overage bills. So that was their goal ultimately, right? I mean, bad
Yeah.
for revenue, but good for the watershed, I suppose.
Yeah.
Well, I don't know if it's good for the watershhed. You've
No,
got,
I mean-
you've
Well,
got
now the
straws
wells
in the same,
Yeah,
in the same pool.
everybody's got straws in the same drink.
right.
And we're just not getting the revenue.
Yeah,
So I'm
Well,
not
that
sure
may
it's a
be-
good thing.
Yeah, well, we'll see how that pans out.
Yeah,
Okay,
they have a theory as to why it's not all straws into the same drink. It escapes me, frankly.
Well, different depths of wells.
Is it how it pertains to is it the fertigation? Is that how they refer to it? That the water that it stays in a little loop that they create for themselves? Is that what, have I heard it explained that way? The water that comes out of their, or the water that enters into their septic system, then they essentially pull up as it filters out and it becomes, I don't know. It's beyond me, but
Yeah.
we'll see. Hopefully it doesn't cost us too much in the long term.
Well, I guess if this reduction is being caused by the punitive rates, that's probably a good thing. If it's being caused by everybody drinking from the same drink with different straws, not so much.
Yeah, right.
All right, well, we will have to keep an eye on the water meetings, I guess. But thank you for that explanation, Ray.
Thanks, Ray.
Moving on, the fire department is also well over budget. And ambulance is obviously the major player in that department. And ambulance revenue is up 27% over budget and 10% ahead of last year. Now, our revenue is based on collections. In the ambulance world, we get visibility on billings as well as collections. And so billings can be a leading indicator for revenue. And while revenue from year to year was up 21%, as I looked at the last quarter of billings, there's a little bit of slowing. So I'm not sure that we'll be able to sustain that billing or that collection rate into all through 2023, fiscal 23. So while it's good news and we'll take advantage of it, I'm watching it to make sure that we don't get ahead of ourselves on that.
Ray, can I ask, did you let people know that we received part of that ambulance revenue is $36,131 in grant revenue that was 9.3% more than the application due to the federal funds increasing. So we got that last month too.
Yeah, well, we got 30,000 last year and 36,000 this year. So it is part of the increase, 6,000 part of the increase, but the major part of that increase really comes from actual ambulance collections. And we're hopeful that, we can maintain that $30,000 to $36,000 grant reimbursement each year. Theoretically, the state is paying us for taking care of Medicaid patients, basically, since their reimbursement rates are so low. In the other category, the major element there is the $106,000 COVID grant that was to reimburse us for fiscal 21 expenditures, but we didn't actually receive it until fiscal 22. So we have a revenue bonus this year, which will be hopefully helpful in the free cash area. Turning to expenditures, I just want to point out that this really isn't the final numbers. We don't have all the encumbrances in yet. We've allowed them, basically the fire department and the water department, a couple more weeks to get all their expenses encumbered for fiscal 22. So some of these numbers might well change a bit, but I will advise you on that when we get that updated, probably by the end of by the time we get together for the next meeting. Looking at the department's Prudential is under budget, and that's under budget both in salary and in the other category. The only exception is insurance, which was over by a couple of $1,000s, and that was due to the unexpected unemployment insurance billings from the state. And we've addressed that in the coming year budget because basically the state has to make up for the money that was dispersed during the COVID, and that put their fund for unemployment funds in a deficit position, and they're making that up. The fire department expenditures are under budget, and that's due to low overtime, low legal, maintenance, and protective equipment costs. OT is down because of the critical injured on duty and sick coverage requirements were down this year, thankfully. Legal, the savings there was an anticipated issue that was budgeted for, but fortunately it didn't arise. Maintenance and the PPE costs, that may be good fortune, or it may be due to the handover as we went through the change in chiefs. Sean is now focused on some of those items, and we may see a little bit of catch up in the coming year, understandably, in those areas in the fire department. Water department is under budget, and that's due to lower engineering project costs and savings in the areas of, for example, chemicals, things related to the lower volume of water produced or pumped, excuse me. Freedom Hall and streetlights, both under budget and both due to the same reason, lower maintenance costs. Library was funded at the indicated at the approved rate. Debt service is now on budget after we made a transfer of funds from the reserve budget account to that. The debt service was now in a 100% budget status. Benefits are lower than budget, and that's due to the premium holiday that was granted by the health insurance group. We knew about it, but we did not include it in the budget because it was not a for sure item. The way the health group voted to do it was, rather than lower the rates, they thought that they would be better in a better position to lower the rates slightly and hold a premium holiday if the performance indicated that they could do that. By performance, I mean the bills that they were paying. That gave Lisa some headaches on some of the deductions for the people, but there won't be any more premium holidays next year. The premium expenditures, excuse me, the insurance expenditures are running at about 12% over the prior year, as indicated at our last meeting. Transfers were done on budget as provided for in the annual district meeting. And with all those actions, the reserve is down to $12,000 that will be turned in as part of the free cash calculation. In the articles area, there was very little activity. There was just a $2,800 bill, legal bill, related to the school property acquisition. In terms of our year-end financial position, the cash position in the general fund is strong. We're at $2.64 million, which is up $400,000 from last year. The stabilization fund balances are for water, $99,882, basically $100,000, and for the general stabilization fund, $225,000. I'm getting actually off script on the. There's nothing in the page. I didn't get these figures on there.
Okay.
The investments for our post-retirement employment benefits, the trust stands at $1.79 million at the end of the year. That's down $42,000 for the year, despite the $239,000 contribution that we made to that trust fund. So if you look at it on a gross basis, our investments are down 15% for the year, which just about matches the decline in the S&P. over roughly the same period. I made a preliminary back of the envelope estimate for free cash, and I'm going to guesstimate the range is somewhere around $500,000, which is down a bit from where we had last year. But we'll see how it all shakes out when we do the arithmetic later on in the year. And just a footnote on something I learned this past week, and that is the town treasurer is retired.
Oh, no.
Has retired, but a replacement has not been named yet, at least according to my sources. That's all I had. If there's any questions.
That's too bad. Deborah was wonderful.
She was. I was very sorry to hear that she was leaving.
Yeah. So, any questions for Ray?
I have none.
Not me.
All right. So we'll move on to Freedom Hall, which has been a very busy place. The Mosquito Yacht Club held their dance there last week. We've had the Cape Cod Healthcare usually does their blood drive at the church, but since that's not available, they use the hall on Monday. And I expect they'll be using the hall again in September. They come to Cotuit every other month. Lisa and I have been working on quite a few reservations being made for the hall for Cotuit Bay Shores and annual meeting, and Jane Winniama's son's going to have a remembrance there for her. And we have people coming, having meals with either, family reunions that are catered or after funeral services. So things are still popping at the at Freedom Hall. Anything on the Cotuit School?
No, I did talk to Mark Boudreau and ask him if he can see if he can get their attention. As you know, we haven't had a meeting now for a couple of months. We were in this practice of having meetings, scheduling a meeting before we left the meeting we were in. And we didn't do that the last meeting, which was probably a mistake. So let's hear from Mark. I did, and I know that Jim Danhauser is pressing. He's the main contact, is pressing for another date as well. I was interested to see, Fran, your email about the insurance for an oil tank.
Yeah.
What can you tell us about that?
Well, actually, Jim Danhauser asked me about that. So I asked Ron, because when he bought the gas station property, I asked him what he did about the possibility that that was contaminated ground. And he said that, he just bought $1 million policy, at the time that they closed, so that if they had to do a cleanup, they had the money to do it. That's so.
He didn't mention how much that cost?
No, he didn't. He's not been feeling too well, so I didn't bother him with that,
Okay.
I don't know if, pardon me, Ray, can you ask our insurer?
Yeah, I will.
About.
I might even ask Lisa. Lisa might have a way of finding out too. Lisa Mycock.
Lisa
Tell her.
Mycock. Yeah, you could ask her. So that's
just in obviously they would need a lot more information, but just for background, it is a fiberglass double hulled circa 1980 or so, if I'm recalling correctly, with a with a leakage monitor.
right.
To the extent that this, and as far as we know, no evidence of any leaks. And also it is Anybody remember how many gallons?
Is it 750? I can look it up.
No, it's
500?
several gallons, several like 5,000 gallons or something. Let me take a look, Ray, and I'll drop you an email.
Great, thank you.
It's not like we're looking for a quote, but that it varies dramatically depending on what you're dealing with. So
Right.
that could be very helpful. A way for us to kind of get around our oil tank residue
Mhm.
problem.
Okay, can I go back to Freedom Hall for a second? Seth, did you have a chance to look at that OWL system that I
I
sent?
did
you?
actually. I did look at it. I thought it looked pretty compelling. I didn't go in depth. It would be nice to have some kind of demonstration on it. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? It looked as if it would work. It seemed like it had a broad radius microphone type scenario, a 360-degree camera. I thought it's as good as anything else. I mean, it seems inexpensive, relatively speaking.
I had, at the last Civic Association meeting, Jim Danhauser hooked a microphone up to his computer that
Mhm.
broadcasts through our speakers. And he said that that worked very well. And in terms of the sound. And then he talked to a friend who runs a lot of webinars and told him about this OWL system that not only does the sound, but I guess pictures also. So I can, if you want, I can call the company and see if we can have a demo.
Oh, for
straight
sure.
in.
Absolutely. It looked good to me. I mean, I figured there must be some kind of, and I'm sorry that I haven't followed up with it.
That's okay.
So anyway, but it looked inexpensive. I assumed there would be some kind of,
Yeah.
middle of the road thing that you could use that would be able to, make it easier for us to do this.
So Ray, the range of the price for the OWL system goes from $1,000 to $3,000 dollars.
Yeah,
Just so
that
you
sounds
know.
pretty reasonable.
Yeah, so, yeah, I'll contact them and see if we can set up a demonstration.
Thank you.
I take it there have been no policy advisory or bylaw meetings?
No. I had one question though, as it pertains to the Cotuit school.
Yes.
Did Mark Dro craft a response to the Carl Grissetti's pending litigation? We had that, remember last meeting we talked about, oh, what was the issue? What was the status of that? Then we dug up the email chain and then decided that, oh, wait, there's still hanging out there.
Yeah.
And that he had to, until what, July 13th or 15th, was it, to respond?
Who, Mark or?
Mark was going to respond on our behalf. Is that not what the chain said? Did I misinterpret that? Because Ray, it was you who sent the email, wasn't it? That said this was not a closed issue.
I got the chain. I forget I think Mark sent me the chain and I forwarded it.
Because here, well, I can. But he had until just this month to respond in some fashion.
Was that Mark?
No, I didn't know
Carl?
what, did anything come? No, not Carl, but our counsel.
No. I don't know. Because I don't think, I didn't get that email.
So where was it? I definitely received it.
Mark, am I imagining? Did you forward it to me and I
Because
sent
when
it?
we spoke about it, then I forwarded it around. And then somebody discovered that there had to be a response from us. Or am I don't think I'm misinterpreting it, am I?
I remember when I read it, to me, the issue was not resolved. There was still an open item on that from that email chain. I didn't remember that we had a timeline on responding.
So here we are. This is from you, Ray. Let's see.
Yeah,
This is June
6/29/22.
29. Based on my reading of the attached email, this is not a closed issue. There are two actions clearly required on the part of the district. The district must submit a position statement on the issue to the AG's office by July 14th,
Whoops.
with copies to the appropriate parties. Second, the district governing body, the Prudential, I believe, this is you, Ray, that wrote this, needs to formally vote to extend the design contract. Is Mark wording on the response? 2 weeks is pretty short time. The PRUCOM vote on continuing the design contract should be scheduled for the next meeting. So Mark could include that in his response to the AG. From Ray.
What's the date on that?
That was June 29th. But was it June 29th this year? That's what I was. Yeah,
Yes.
this day, June 29th.
I don't think anyone's asked Mark Bordeaux to respond.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
seems
I
like we
didn't
need
pass
to
it
dig back into this. Yeah, was that July 14th, the date, July 14th, 2021? Because my recollection was that this was dormant. There was nothing due.
Until we get ready to work with the consultants.
Exactly. And I think it was dormant until the deal goes through,
Right.
is the way I recall it.
Right, that was why I had read that email and in my rehashing of things in order to do this. And I thought that I was just curious about, was that a thing? Do you know what I mean? Because that's what I got in the email. And so I thought,
Yeah.
oh, well, I must have responded. So but maybe it was all out of context insofar as, did he already respond to it? Did he not respond to it? Were we compelled or obligated to respond to it?
Can you send me that email again?
Yeah, I'll do it right now.
And I'll call Mark.
Yeah. Here's that July 14th date was referenced in a July 8, 2021.
So is that what it was? It was just
Yeah.
So
did he respond already? That was where I got confused. That was what my
yeah,
question
hold on.
was. Because I can't remember receiving anything specifically. I guess Mark's response would have happened last year then, and that was
Yeah.
issue dormant. So that was my.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure he responded. He responded after it was sent in by
Right.
Carl.
And so that was it. So that was okay. I get it. Sorry for.
That's
Muddy.
okay. I'll just ask him for a copy of his response.
And then as it pertains to the school committee and all, so Mark, for the committee meeting upcoming, you mean that the town has not been responsive to scheduling another meeting?
Yes.
Not the committee itself.
Yes. We've been having monthly meetings now for 10 months. We always schedule it before we walk out the door.
Yeah.
We didn't last time. I think because we had raised the oil tank issue and they said, well, that's gonna, we'll have to look into that. We'll have to do some research. I want to get back on this is not an insurmountable problem. I want to get back on the meeting track. So Mark is gonna press David Anthony. He thinks is the best person to be getting on the schedule with, and Jim is also pursuing that. So
I guess David's been on vacation. That's what Jim said.
Well,
okay.
that makes, it's that time
Contacted
of
me
year.
about the insurance.
Yeah, he's just a busy guy too, which is
Yeah.
why we had these scheduled before we left the room. We need to make sure we continue doing that because we're very far advanced in this process, but for the oil tank issue,
Yeah.
which I think can be resolved. So we should get it done.
Yeah, I guess so long as we keep meeting and keep it going and don't fall into the back burner. Not that that's what we're doing. Obviously, in the summertime, everybody takes vacations and towns function a lot more slowly because there's so much more going on. But, as I've said before, and I'll say it again, anything that belabors the process unduly, I think isn't going to do us any favors. The
No.
sooner we can get this done, better and happier we'll all be, having already approved this at an annual district meeting and set funds aside to study, the outcomes.
One other thing about the school, I had a phone call actually from Lisa Wyckoff. Her sister and brother-in-law have been walking by and they saw a damaged window and the screen pulled off. And so I notified Sean, who didn't know that Paul had volunteered to the town for the fire department to keep an eye on the school. So, so that didn't get passed along. So he notified the town and they said they, he went in and looked at the building. It didn't look like anybody had been inside. But this was on the side that nobody sees. It's on the water tank side, the old kindergarten room. So, they're going to start keeping an eye on the building. I drive by also just to make sure there's nothing nefarious going on. And I don't think that the website for the interested Cotuit people has gone up yet.
I know we haven't had any updates on that. None of you have heard from George Foy or any of the.
No.
Any of that.
It did occur to me looking at that letter again, a lot of the things he proposes, we do have Freedom Hall. If someone wants to use the basketball court, that's a whole different thing. But some of the activities George is proposing, if there is interest in them, we have a facility that might be able to accommodate that program.
And a lot of what they were proposing were, like you can go to the fire station and get your blood pressure checked anytime. The other nonprofits that they were, saying, they could do something for, they can just go and volunteer at the Cahoon or wherever. So, and, I don't, unless we chop down the trees in front, there isn't going to be a place for a community garden because the field will belong to the town. And so, plus.
Well, we'll see what happens with them then, I suppose.
Should we be scheduling some kind of, push this out into the open? So that is, you guys need to be doing this now. If you're serious about this, or should we be waiting to see what we, I don't know.
George Foy's group?
Yeah, or anyone else.
Well, I mean, maybe, I don't know. That's why I get kind of frustrated with how I know that this is a municipal project and that there's a lot of, we want to do our due diligence to the utmost and everything. We're kind of in a holding pattern. I mean, it would be nice if we could put on a civic association meeting of some kind with updates and information, and then open it to the public for whatever, however it goes out into the
But we don't have
village.
any
But
answers.
we have nothing.
Yeah.
And that's what
That's-
we're a year on, and our costs are skyrocketing all the time, whether it be borrowing money, whether it be, construction, demolition, whatever, you name it. As time goes by, we've gone from a 0.5 or 1% interest zone into a 5, 6, 7, 8, wherever we'll end up.
Yeah, it's about to go up again, 0.75.
And, right, and so, and that's the whole thing. And I guess it would be nice if we could start getting people more involved, but we ourselves are just barely involved. And I guess not, you know what I mean? Not to,
Yeah.
It's been a lot of work to get, you guys have done a great job negotiating with them. But
Well,
anything that creates additional obstacles, I think is just
yeah.
even more as time goes by.
I mean, at some point we need to jump that obstacle, but as I listen to this, we're probably not ready for that.
No.
Let's get back on the town's damn schedule. And maybe we can firm up some dates. I mean, if we could, in the fall, go out and say, look, this deal looks like it will close on or about.
Right.
And maybe, we go to people and say, so now's your opportunity. And of course, the fire department is going to be presumably the main opponent of a proposal that does not include a fire department.
Yeah,
So,
And more, I mean, they should also be thinking about getting their message out there at this point. Because as we do zero in on, yeah, as we get closer to that point, you know, we need to have some public information meetings. Like, even if we say, for instance, I know, like, the concern about the potential cost of an oil, you know, some kind of, you know, environmental problem, some kind of cleanup or reclamation of the soil or whatever, and how much that may cost, you know what I mean? And that is a stumbling block. If we could put on an informational meeting, or ask the Civic Association to put on an informational meeting about what is the appetite for expense, you know, as we talked about before, like, what is the red line here? If we're gonna, any of these eventualities, are we gonna get to a point? Because that's another thing I'm starting to think about is, you know, do we get through this whole process and then at the last moment, after we conclude our studies and everybody says, this is too much money.
Yeah.
Let's let it sit derelict like the town would, because now it's going to cost $3 million to tear it down. And it's simply too much to create a green space. And then we have to pay $1 million to remove this damaged oil tank. Do you know what I mean?
no, we don't have to pay $1 million. No, that's just insurance.
Right.
If
that
there
would be
is a
covered.
spillage, you know,
Right.
we
But
just
you
have
see
to
what
pay
I'm
a
saying?
premium
Oh,
for
it's
that.
like the whole story is going to is evolving and changing as we go through this whole thing. And now with the economic situation that we're possibly heading into, I just wonder now to myself, because will we then get to a point like, so, okay, yep, we've acquired the property. It took a long time. Situation changed. We now know we're going to study it. So what was 5 is 10. What is 10 is 20. And then is everybody going to be like,
Well,
no way. 10,
what,
20, 30
you say
billion
no
dollars.
way, Seth, you mean no way do we want the property, or
No,
way do we want
to some kind of the development aspect of it later on. This is just me opining, by the way. It's not like I'm just
that's one of the reasons that I wanted to just have a meeting and tell people, look, this is what it costs for Bourne or Falmouth to build a fire station, you know, that would be the size of our fire station. A year and a half ago was $14 million. You know, we can give people, you know, the sort of, you know, the most likely amount it's going to cost, but, you know, everybody seems to want an exact cost. Well, you're never going to be able to give them an exact cost.
right, because everything's so fluid.
You know,
Maybe it's time we start thinking about having a meeting where I mean, granted, still premature, but what the real costs will be for all this stuff. That's just, as I said, I'm opining just as a,
yeah, but we don't know.
just
We
for the
don't
heck
know
of
the
it.
real costs. We haven't
Exactly. We have no idea. So then that leads me to the opposite conclusion, is to just get this over with as quickly as possible and be done with it. And then
meaning
Go
acquire
from
the
there.
property,
the acquisition of the property. Yeah.
figure out what we're going to do with it after the fact.
Yeah. And just let the chips fall where they may.
Yeah.
Whatever the situation is.
Okay.
Anyway, sorry. That was just my thinking out loud.
Your point about the fire department, if, you know, at the long-term strategy meeting, they were very explicit. Yeah, we want to do this. We want to move it up in the capital projects, and we want to do it at the school property. So it probably behooves them to start telling people that that's what their plan and their hope is, and taking people's temperature. Because
Right.
I have no idea whether people say, oh, that's fantastic, or whether there'll be just howls of protest.
Right. And the Civic Association would be the best place for them to put that on, especially now when in the near term where there's so many people around, and not that we can compel them to do that, but if anybody talks to them or they watch this meeting.
But
And we can't compel them, but we can recommend, suggest, coerce.
Anyway, sorry to diverge from the.
no, but
No, it's important.
we can't even we can't even go out for a study until we decide what we're gonna study.
Right.
You know, are we gonna study putting a fire station in there? Are we gonna study putting offices in there? Are we gonna study what apparently a significant group of people want to make it some sort of municipal cultural center, community center, which I think is bogus, but, you know.
Right, well, I guess.
All this gets back to, we need to schedule another damn meeting with the
Yes.
town so we can make
Yeah.
it move
Get with the
forward.
town. Call them again every day. Who was it? Someone,
Yeah.
someone gave me advice, right? You know this, if you want to get in touch with somebody, you call them every single week on the same day at the same time until they're forced to respond to you. So it becomes an item on their calendar, like, oh, this is when.
Yeah,
Definitely.
exactly. So they groan and say, oh God, it's Monday at 3 o'clock. It's gotta be
And he's
set for
calling
it
yet
again.
again. Anyway,
Okay, let's
All
moving
right.
on. Is there any public comment?
I see no public comment or text.
Okay, so the next meeting, do we want to not have a meeting in August? Or tentatively schedule one for the 29th if needed?
I'm fine with tentative, just in case anything develops. If there's nothing else for my opinion anyway, if there's nothing else, then why bother?
Yeah, why don't we make it tentative with the idea that unless something comes up, we will probably cancel it.
Okay. All right. So, all set then on, for tonight? I'll accept a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
So moved.
Is there a
Oh, I'll
second?
second it. I'll
All
second.
those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you very much.
Thank you. I'll see you all soon, or maybe I won't, but I'll see at some point.
Well, I make